South African rugby. Nobody does it better. And they've got to the try line.
Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. I am Kevin Ferguson. I've got Scott Gibbs. We're probably in the worst hotel in Wales, the Hilton. I can't believe it, Scott. I've been here now for a day. It's freezing. No atmosphere whatsoever.
No, it's dead as a donut, isn't it? I mean, given it's Black Friday, so, only a few weeks till Christmas, very little footfall
No.
for the retail perspective. There's no bobber hats, scarves.
None.
So you've seen just a few South African supporters, but it's flat, isn't it?
Oh,
Like a witch's tit.
I think it's flatter than that, mate. You know what? I was out last night, had a couple drinks, and not one person, not one, spoke about the rugby. Not one. I mean, the one guy that I did ask mentioned that he prefers when Wales lose because people go home depressed early. And he was into the MMA, and I thought I'd been time warped somewhere to a place that I don't recognize. Because for me, Cardiff on build up to an international of this nature is usually a bit electric, definitely vibey, but not one person I spoke to yesterday could give a rat's arse about the rugby.
No, and it's strange, really. Yes, Wales are, on a kind of 11-game losing streak.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of apathy for sure about potentially the future of Gatland. But I think it's deeper than that. I think it's systematic, and it's more, some of the plans that haven't transpired yet from the Welsh Rugby unit. It's a direction of what the regional game looks like, what the international footprint looks like. But I can't remember a time where the atmosphere 24 hours before kickoff has just been as flat as it is now. It's kind of depressing in Cardiff. And it makes, Cardiff always, it's been years since I've been to Cardiff, let's be honest, but it looks scruffy, it feels scruffy.
It's expensive, though. It's scruffy expensive.
And, we waited for Costa coffee. Like you're in the UK, Costa is a brand of coffee. It's not like maybe, but it was like.
Not Volvatello.
No, it wasn't a Volvo but I had to wait 6 minutes. It was just like watching the Wales front five move around the park. There was no speed or urgency of delivery. So, it is strange. I think this is a sign of the times.
Yeah,
it is a sign of the times, and it's scary. Yeah,
it's when you look at it, the coach is the obvious target when things are going wrong. But Gatland got you guys to the 2019 World Cup semi-finals. You lost by 3 points to the eventual champions. South Africa's now been World Cup champions for 5 years, so over 1,800 days that they've been World Cup champions. Wales haven't won a rugby game in over 400 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you masterly? Am I saying it right?
I don't know.
How do you master that craft of not winning for over a year? Because there's some obvious problems that we chatted about, off air, where when you look at Welsh rugby, what's this, for me, what is this not picking your best players? It's not as if Wales have that luxury that they're a superpower, that they can...
Well, we've had this 25 cap rule, meaning that you've had to have earned 25 caps to be eligible for Wales if you were playing outside of the territory or the principality.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely ludicrous, as you say, because there's so much emerging talent, from under 18s and the 20s that have honed a skill in Hartbury College or in the West Country down in Exeter. Plenty of great schools, and you can't blame the system for that in the context that parents are going to send their kids for their best education and also their best sporting education.
Yeah.
So the sooner that gets scrapped, the better. And again, this doesn't have to go through Congress or whatever. I mean, this is an executive order that
this is something that everybody knows.
Everybody knows, and it's on everybody's lips. And I mean, I was at an event yesterday, and a lot of these are the stakeholders, the supporters, the people who volunteer and coach young kids, and they feel it's ridiculous. So the sooner that's scrapped, and that's a directive for the directorate at the Welsh Rugby Union. So listen, if we have talent, whether it's in Timbuktu, Cape Town, or in the West Country or Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire, wherever they're playing their trade, let's put the net out and let's bring them into the fore. And I think another thing is that the Welsh Rugby Union scrapped the Wales A system, which I think was a cost-cutting measure. But this is no time to look at the forensic analysis of cost-cutting, because I think you need to develop, and you need to spend money on developing talent and making sure that it doesn't get lost in the net. So I think that's another issue. Obviously, the biggest headache for most in Wales is the viability of the regions and what that looks like, and whether 4 regions now is too cost heavy, and it'll ultimately reduce to 2, one would think. But I think, look at where the puck is going. We mentioned earlier in the year about the Springboks and the brand of the Springboks really carrying the weight of everyone that's playing in World Rugby at the moment. And the fact is, I can see in no uncertain terms that within a 5-10 year period, that rugby is only going to exist in major metropolitan cities. And, where they're going to be. I mean, let's talk about Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, etc., La Rochelle, Toulouse, big cities. Big cities with big fan bases, Bath, Leicester, Saracens, etc. It's Lens, Dublin. That's the elitism of our game, and sadly that Wales has been its own worst enemy from its own administration, professionalism or not. We've had 25 years of professional here in Wales, and we haven't seen any fruits of its labor, really.
No, and it's when you look at it from a cyclical point of view, South Africa, darkest days were when we lost to Italy. I don't know if you remember that game, but the memes that came out after that were hilarious. But it was a very sad day for South African rugby to lose to Italy, And Alistair Coetzee was fired, and Rassie came in, and Rassie's a great coach, and I'll take not comparing the two. But the one thing Rassie negotiated was, I get to pick who I want.
Yeah.
And just by default, that casts a net all over the world. So Rassie had the intelligence and the foresight. So look, I'm gonna coach this team, but I get to pick whoever I want. And so the Alistair days, he didn't get to pick who he wanted. He had to pick guys that played in South Africa. And so when you look at the Welsh situation now, it's very dark days for Wales.
It is. Listen, I think yes, Rassie has the raw minerals at his disposal, but I still think, his excellence and his genius as a coach, he could put a ragtag and bobtail outfit together and it'd still be competitive on the world stage.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Gatland is a very good coach, but just hasn't got the depth of minerals or the quality of minerals, when it comes to the player pool and so on and so forth. Because I think every international coach has the same issue: access to players when they are on international duty, what they can do by way of recovery, the physiology, the strength and conditioning, etc., and obviously schematics about game plans and so on and so forth. So they all have the same time. It's all that window, and it's how you extrapolate the value and refine your squad into a real sharp point when it comes to performing on the international stage. Actually, quite funny quip I read on BBC Sport the other week about there's a thin line between winning and losing in international rugby, and someone said, "Yeah, it's called the fucking equator," and it's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So. Existential threats, yes. I must reinforce. I do have a little belief that the performances we've seen over the last couple of weekends, from a Welsh perspective, looked a little bit tired and pathetic at times. But I do believe Saturday now there will be there will be something different. I just do feel, because I think if you have a player like Jack Morgan just like turn it on, I think that it'll be the catalyst, the litmus test for the rest of them to get into the game. So I do feel Saturday Wales will show a little bounce, and a little bit of character that is needed to go up against the Springboks. And if you look at the Springboks side, I was potentially disappointed. I thought Rassie would look at this vis-a-vis like World Cup final. Let's add salt to the wound now, and just let's put our most ferocious 23 out there, and let's finish off the tour on a real high. I mean, I no doubt that South Africa will win on Saturday. But the fact is that there's a few changes in the front row, 2 second rows coming in. Again, John Klein, I love. Franco Motzes, for me, he's one of the most polished finesse second rows there is. A couple of changes at back row. Hendricks of boys coming in at halfbacks. Settle midfield, settle back three, fine. But that's just, again, Rassie's genius. That's when you look at it now, you kind of ask yourself, what would be the best South African team? And ultimately, the question is, yes, everybody knows who they would pick. So I go back to Rassie. Everyone has an appreciation of what a World Cup 23 looks like, or maybe what should have happened, what the team that he should have picked to really put Wales to the sword this weekend. But the fact is, I think now that Rassie is like so ambivalent about it. It's like, no, every team that I pick is the best on the day. It's the best, the best cohesion. This is what I want to see. And of course, he's blooded so many players over this test calendar year. I think something like 42 or 52 players. So it just shows you that the depth of the player pool is phenomenal. And yet we've only seen flashes of brilliance, even though I think all the games this autumn have been spectacular from a Springbok perspective. I've seen elements that really just get me so excited.
I haven't been back to Cardiff for an international for a while, but when I was last in Cardiff, we looked at we were looking at a Welsh team that was dominating South Africa, and it's words I thought as a Welshman I'd never say, but we were very dominant over South Africa, and 20-1 Wales are to beat South Africa tomorrow. 20-1.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I looked, I know who's going to win. And it doesn't matter who he picks. Like you say, it's the best team on the day for the day, depending on what happened the previous week. And it's just
the good thing about Rassie, he never diverges too far from kind of his own ideology. So he always keeps a combination. So keep the back three intact, or keep the midfield intact. Go with 2 strong locks. Balance in the back row can be anything. I mean, I'm led to believe Peter Steff's already back in Cape Town and recovering. He's a tough year. I mean, earned that rest.
Yeah.
So do all of them. So
Well,
the challenge is now for that Bok front five to be cohesive on Saturday. Because if they're a little bit loose and raggedy and also want to play too much because they feel that because they haven't had exposure or they've been out injured, they need to prove something to Rassie, then it's a potential opportunity for Wales. So you look at both back lines in not in experience terms. Because obviously there's far more experience in cap numbers on the Boks side as it is to the Welsh side. But when you look at the numbers, the sheer numbers, the height, the weight, etc. I mean, there's almost parity there. So you can't really say, well, they should be more powerful or they should be quicker than the opposition. So there's an opportunity to really stake a case on Saturday.
Yeah, it absolutely shocked me that you get 20-1 on Wales. And as the owner of SA Rugby magazine, and for looking at it from a betting point of view, I wouldn't touch it. I have to bet on Wales. I have to bet £100 on Wales just to have the shock upset. At those odds, I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Well, it's not going to happen because
I know it's not going to happen.
Even if the Boks have an awful day at the office and are operating at 80% and it's error strewn, what we've seen over the last couple of years is their inner resolve when it comes to decision makers. And there's so much quality, as we know, and so much composure that they've built this resilience that they've just been a masterful closers. So,
Mm.
God, even at 60, 65 minutes, if it's
But
break
how
once
do
in
they
it.
get up for this, Scott? Because
Oh, they get no, they
that's
course
my
no,
worry. That's my
no,
concern.
no, no. There's no complacency. Listen, they may be in an equally shitty hotel in Cardiff, going, I can't get me the fuck out of here. I
Mm.
can't wait to be back in the Western Cape or the Eastern
Yeah.
Cape or back in Gauteng or whatever. And I mean, as the weather warms up, because it is a bit frigid. There's it's getting a lot milder tomorrow, but apparently there's a very, very disturbing weather forecast coming in. So there's, rain's going to come in. The wind is probably not going to affect the stadium because the roof will be on, etc. But the fact is that, what we've seen and epitomized 12 months ago in Paris is that this team knows how to finish and they like to finish strong. And I think they'll want to finish this autumn international in a very positive way. So lots of nice changes, lots of exciting changes. Business as usual for the Boks. I just see a 35-15 at least type of result for the Boks. But I do feel that there'll be a sterner test.
35-15 result, you mean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I mean, I'm only saying that maybe there'll be a little bit of a dysfunction because of the front five they haven't been together for such a long time. Yes, they've had reps in practice and that halfbacks as well. Jordan Henderson's a great player, but not. We know from his own kind of continuity game and his passing that can narrow the defenses to some degree. But this, like we all know, I mean, this is a 23-man game, and when you have Harkey Snyman and whose form last weekend was just imperious, Eben again, just getting better. For those guys to come off the bench next weekend at the 55, 60-minute mark, it just puts a fear of God into the opposition, isn't it? Because we're talking about some of the best that's ever played the game. So. My only caveat is, do you know what? With the weather warning and the Welsh perspective, maybe people don't turn up, or it might be a bit of a hollow atmosphere there tomorrow. Which then I think from a senior leadership perspective is like, this is business, guys. This is 3 hours of our life business. Let's just get down to the nuts and bolts of it. And yeah. So, will the game be exciting? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I'm blown away with the lack of enthusiasm for the game in Cardiff, and maybe I'm being too hard, but
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you are, Kevin, because this city, like most cities on a rugby match day, really thrive when it comes to like the build up and the excitement, but it's, as you said, it's flat. It's noticeably flat.
Yeah, and when we went to try and we went to try and charge the laptop and we talk about the rules and all these things.
Well, when nanny state, health and safety wouldn't let us plug it in. It's just becoming very, very difficult.
Yeah.
To do anything or get anything done here. And I mean, maybe that's a metaphor for the Welsh Rugby Union.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was going. That's what I was going with it. It is sad. It's because I pop into town with this sort of expectation of a match day, and then no one's on, no one's.
No, there's no buzz. And like I said, it's behind the paywall. So unless you subscribe to TNT, you're not going to see it. I mean, fortunately in Wales, all the Wales games, again, this is a kind of nanny thing because of the Welsh language, is that you get access to free to air with S4C. And provided you have the red button to interactive, you can listen to English commentary. Sadly, Afrikaans or Zulu or whatever. Yeah, of course that.
Yes.
So you know. I think they'll. You. Yeah, it'll be another weekend to forget. I think one of those like calendar events that become a non-event.
Welsh rugby has been. We lost to Fiji. We lost to Australia. We got pumped by Australia.
Yeah, pumped by Australia.
And
we got the mighty Springboks in town, which is always, this is the test. You're up against the best. Always been the biggest fixture from my perspective, up against the Springboks. And then, lo and behold, within 6-7 weeks, you got France away. You got Italy away. listen, as you said, this losing streak can continue, but I think we just got to keep the faith that, and this shouldn't all fall at Gatland's feet
No,
because
no,
he's
no.
got an experienced coaching team that also need to take the flak and the blame, and also you need to see the CEO and the director, kind of front up a little, communicate with their stakeholders, us as supporters, tell us what's going on, tell us what the plan is, tell us that everything is going to be all right.
Well, it's usually when the parents can't tell you that you got real problems. And I think my opinion is that they don't have a plan, you know,
Still
because
waiting on it, still waiting on it. But yeah, I mean, I think all will be revealed. But I mean, it's going to be a hard fix. It's going to be a tough fix, and tough decisions have to be made. But tough times don't last. Tough people do, and I think the resilience of this Welsh squad, and we've seen bleeding of a lot of young talent coming through. So I think and I watched during the winter in Cape Town. Half a dozen of those under 12s, under 20 boys. I tell you, they'll be knocking on the door very, very soon. So, we just need to harness the right type of talent and get rid of all the stuff that's hamstringing us.
yeah.
And all the rules and regulations about not being able to choose guys who are applying their trade and profession outside of the principality. God's sake.
Mm.
As you say, wherever they are in the world and they're eligible and they're good enough, should be brought into the system, like Rassi, like Rassi's done. He's seen a load of great talent now, and he's exposed them to this international level. That's what it's about. It's about opportunity.
So as we're recording this, we've just been told that Etzebeth is starting now. So I think the 20-1 is probably going to drift out to 30-1 by the end of the night. This doesn't doesn't get any better for Wales, does it? But South Africa 25.5 point favorites. I mean, that's quite a
Yeah,
heavy.
and I'm being kind with my kind of my match day prediction, but the fact is that, if South Africa hit their straps, early in the game, then they just have this collective shape and belief that it
Well,
could I mean, listen, if it does get ugly, then I think decisions do have to be made, from a Welsh perspective, because
you,
someone has to be accountable.
well,
Given last weekend's
yeah.
shellacking.
Well, the CEO must stand up and fall.
Well, nobody's seen of it. I mean, she's not addressed the press, and I know you have PR machines in most organizations, but I think from the stakeholder fans' perspective, I'd like to hear what the CEO's views are, on Gatland, on the way forward, and how things are going to change and will change, just to give us a little bit of comfort.
Well,
But tomorrow, listen, the changing room. Can you imagine being in the Wales changing room tomorrow? When the press and the media and former players have been going at your coach and
but
taking pot shots at you as a player, you kind of start to believe it. But I'm a believer that you have to believe in your own talent, and you have to go out there and be the aggressor, be the intimidator tomorrow. I'd like to see that from a few of the Welsh players, because that's infectious on the field, Because
yeah.
ultimately the Springboks bleed the same as the Welsh guys. And yes, we know there's disparity when it comes to skill, athleticism, power, pace, etc. But that's because the culture and the system that the Boks play under has been far superior. I mean, they are set at the benchmark, and they've
Yeah.
created a new paradigm for the way that the game is played. So it's enviable in one perspective, but
Well,
also it's there to be shot at. You've got to go at it. You've got to go for the juggler tomorrow.
when you look at you make a good point there, Scott, and when you look at what Rassi's done, not only has he created the best rugby team in the world,
Yeah,
he's created the best rugby brand in the world.
yeah,
When you look at the valuation of a 2018 Springbok brand valuation and what the valuation of that brand is now from a commercial point of view,
yeah.
he should be on a massive
Yeah, they've demonstrated exponential growth across lots of facets of the game, not only from a commerciality perspective, but just the way that the game is played and the way that it's appreciated, and also the way they've gone about doing it, the players themselves.
Yeah.
So kudos for them. And, everybody loves a winner, and I'm a big fan of the Springboks, big fan of the
Well, they say that
Springboks. But I mean, it has to be competitive on Saturday, and that the Springboks are not going to just, take their foot off the gas just because they kind of want to make a game of it. That they're going to come at them strong. So it's got to fight fire with fire, and also, be clear of thought and play in the right positions. But let's just hope for rugby's sake that, Wales put a good fist of it together on Saturday. Make this a really competitive game. Because it's not about head scratching time now, Kev. Because, Rassie doesn't do that. He doesn't second guess himself. He doesn't second guess his players. But a lot of pressure is on the players and Gatland and his team to produce something that, the players at least can be proud of.
But from a player's point of view, you've been on some bad teams, and you've been on some strong teams. So when you're looking at going in, for example, and there's the expectation, because the bookies are saying there's 25.5 points difference between these two teams. What's the mindset like for, say, a Springbok player that's like, it's expected to win by close to 30 points?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I bet the C word, complacency, is never ever talked about, because it's not acceptable at elite level sport.
Yeah.
The fact is, like, system, do your job. Just look around, make sure everybody's doing their job. This is what we practice. This is what the scheme is. This is what we talked about. It's about execution.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing when you have these kind of senior leader position players that we've been blessed to see over the last kind of 4 years, 6 year cycle. Is this consistency of performance by the same guys, that take the lead and they bring it in when things start to go awry. So,
Yeah, look, the wind's been taken out of my sails coming into Cardiff. It's been one of the worst trips I've had. Sorry, but I wish I could say something positive about it, because it's not. I mean, the only thing I saw we saw a South African fan who was being accosted by, and I've been joking about being accosted, but he's Ekpastani.
Well, to being back in the Western Cape, isn't it, Kev? Because there'd be no issues about where you can watch the game tomorrow.
No.
You will be complaining about the price of coffee or the price of a train ticket, or the tardiness of the hotel, etc. So let's hope that the sun shines for you tomorrow and you get your wishes and your bets come through, and you can hightail it back to Gatwick and be back in the southern suburbs before you even know.
So what your prediction is what, 25 points? So you
Yeah, I don't know why it kind of feels like a round number to me, 35-15. I just think that the Boks may be a little bit clunky just because of some of the potential dysfunction in the front five. Eben coming back now maybe alters that slightly because of his leadership position and the way that he just, takes the game by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah.
And the halfbacks again, great to see those two guys play. We haven't seen them play together for a while, so but I think from a midfield back three perspective, where is the eyes and the positions of any international rugby? I mean, there's a lot of consistency, so yeah.
Look, for me, when you look at it when I look at it from a punting position, 25.5 is a lot of points against a Welsh team that will and should be fired up tomorrow. They're going to lose, and
the thing you have to accept your limitations sometimes as an international rugby player, that you are on a bad run, but the fact is that we have nothing to lose. That is the mentality. Let's go out and do ourselves proud first and foremost, and we'll let the reflection of what that represents to the crowd and whether they are proud of our efforts on Saturday.
Yeah, I think for me, Scott, I'd have to South Africa will win comfortably, but 25.5, I don't think they'll win. I don't think Wales will lose by 26.
No, because that sounds like there'll be a capitulation at some point.
Yeah.
And you know, nobody wants to see that. I mean, it kind of felt like that last week against the Wallabies, that they kind of gave up. You know, going in at halftime with only 3 points in the game, I think, you know, and the war cry at halftime would be, "We can win this. Believe in yourselves." And then suddenly the second half just implodes. Can't be in that position on Saturday. Got to be in a position to, like, we can sneak this, but we got to stick to our system. We're going to stick to our guns. But that's got to be met with, you know, 100% aggression, belief, and tactical nous that, you know, you can maybe trip up the mighty Springboks, but they're much too clever a group of players now, and ever more smarter than they've ever been in the history of Springbok rugby.
Yeah, if Wales wins tomorrow, it'll be one of the biggest rugby upsets.
Yeah, and it wouldn't swallow it. You know, one swallow doesn't make a summer. It would be a great boost for their confidence and maybe a little pressure off Gatland and so on, and give them a little, what they say, a little bit of a hoil going forward into the Six Nations. But I mean, you know, I think the days of these massive upsets in international rugby, you know, the David and Goliath upsets, I think are gone, and the Springs are way too smart to let that happen on Saturday.
So your score prediction is
35-15 to the Springboks, and I think that's kind of generous.
Yeah, I'm going to say 40-15, which is only 25 points. So you know, I'll back I'll back Wales to not lose by 26 or more, and that would be a good result for me. But doesn't solve any problems for Welsh rugby. But like you say, the imperious form of the Boks is not going to be.
No, and listen, and as a neutral rugby fan, and those millions of us who love rugby around the world, it's a really great sight to see, you know, the Springboks when they play with you know, such guile and such vigor, because they're not a one-trick pony anymore. You know, it's not a it's not a 10-man kind of assault anymore. It's a 23 guys all buying into an ideology, into a belief, into a system that is just, when it happens, it's just beautiful to watch. So go Boks.
Yeah.
But let's see Wales put up a real brave, stern account for themselves on Saturday for their own sake.
Yeah. Well, it should be another depressing night in Wales, according to all the people I've spoken to with Wales.
Yeah.
Probably taking a beating of biblical proportions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's let's hope it's for good rugby. Good rugby.
Yeah, and wherever you're watching it in the Western Cape, throughout the Republic, enjoy. I think it'll be a great game. It will be a great game. But surely you'll recognize that the weather's a lot nicer where you are.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait to get back. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it, man.
South African rugby, nobody does it better. And they've got to the try line.